And then I'm going to go ahead and share this out so that we have everybody knowing that we're doing it. I hope everybody's day is wonderful and grand. It was a great night for me, and I'm actually going to have a pretty great day. I'm kind of really looking forward to my day. I've got plans with my sister. We're going to get ready for the rave that we're going to tomorrow. We're going to make bracelets today, and we're going to play games. It is the weekend, and it's Halloween weekend, so like everybody's doing shit. Like it's got the fun stuff going on. So I'm totally looking forward to it. I'm like, fuck yes, that's my jam. And so I've got to do, we're making bracelets today for the rave tomorrow. And I got like they're bracelets that you can chew on. I went and found like necklaces that you could chew on. They have them like for people with sensory things or for ND people. And so I got these necklaces, and I got a unicorn for me and a mermaid for her. And then I've got stuff to make bracelets, but the beads for the bracelets are kind of like chewable, like you can like gnaw on them a little bit. So I'm super, super excited. It'll be the first time I get to make bracelets and take them with me. And so I'm totally down. And then we I'm dressing as a demon tomorrow. I actually was testing out my airbrush today. So I'm dressing as a demon tomorrow, which is why my nails are ultra long and black. And I'm going to paint my entire body. I got them off of Amazon, Obsidian. I would look for, I think they're anxiety necklaces is what they were. You can do chew necklaces for sensory kids, and that pops up like right on top of it. It says chew necklace. And the ones that I got like a pack of like 8 of them. And I've still got a couple that I didn't give away. Like this one's like a little shark tooth, and it's like this silicone rubbery, and I can sit there and chew on it with no problem, and it doesn't hurt me at all. It's really nice. Like you can see that it's like it gives a little bit of the imprint of the bite marks and stuff, but it actually like stays really well, which is a really awesome thing. And you can actually get like beads and stuff, so you can make your own too. Hold on, I'll show you. The pack that I got had a bunch of pink stuff. It had like a pink unicorn, and then it's got this little pink mermaid I'm giving to my sissy. And this one's got like texture on the back. So when you're chewing on it, like it will give you a little bit of a texture. And then I got like these little packs of beads, and they're just like regular rave beads, basically. This one has like little letters on it. Hello, hello, hello. And all of these are sensory as well. Like all of these are chewable as well. I mean, obviously I got them for the rave for actual other things, right? But all of these are able to be like gnawed on. And so what I'm probably going to do if I have any left is take the unit, because I got a little unicorn one, take the little unicorn one and maybe make a little necklace. But I've got, losing beads. Like this is all chewy. Like I can press on it and chew on it, and they're just little beads. And so like you can do an entire like necklace. This actually came with string. And the sensory necklaces that I got, they all came with string and like these little like, you can undo them and stuff like that. And there's even like a quick undo, I think, so that you can like take them off and on really easily and stuff like that. Absolutely. I didn't know about it, right? Like I went looking for, I mean, usually when you go to raves, people use binkies. That's what somebody gave me my first rave was a binky. My sister gave it to me after my first rave. And so like I was thinking that, I was going to go and find binkies. And so I was going to find an adult binky, because then I can like use it for bedtime, because I'll chew in the middle of the night or I'll grind my teeth. So I was like, and then as I was looking, I saw the sensory chew necklaces, and I went, that's exactly what I fucking need. I didn't know until last week that they exist. So absolutely, I'm totally down to share it. And I do, like, I'll suck at my teeth or my mouth or think, yeah. And like I get like, and so I'm like, so this, I'm hoping I mean, obviously for the rave, it's not just the normal ND stuff, but I'm hoping that it will really be helpful. And then I'm hoping like after the rave, it will really be helpful for the ND stuff and the fact that I'm like really sensory on that. The state of Palestine doesn't have like a land that they technically like it's their land, but they're under attack and it's being stolen from them. Like they've been like under attack for since oh god 1948 is or 47 is when they started being under attack and their land started getting robbed from them and taken from them. And I know that we like think of it as like, oh, there's Palestine and then there's Israel. But the problem is that Israel has taken over all of the area of Palestine, right? They have actually like they're creating an apartheid in the area. They have confined all of the Palestinians pretty much, except for the ones that they have working for them, to either the Gaza Strip or the West Bank, which are both very small areas to combine a whole bunch of people. And it is very much their land. It is very much their land. It has been their land since before the Israelites arrived the very first time. The Israelites describe in the Torah their conquering of Palestine, of Canaan. And they describe how they take out the Canaanites, right? And they describe how they are totally frigging like murdering people like the walls of Jericho, the rape of the Sabine. They really describe the colonization of Canaan, and the descendants of Canaan are the Palestinians, right? And so the Palestinians didn't do anything to the Israelites, right? The Palestinians didn't harm the Israelites. And about 1918, I think is what it was, Britain went to the Ottoman Empire and went to the indigenous people of the Ottoman Empire, which are the Palestinians, right? They're indigenous to that area, and offered them money if they would overthrow the Ottoman Empire. And when they did, right, as they're doing that, Britain is actually offering Israel money to overthrow the Ottoman Empire at the same time. So Israel is hedging their bets and offering two different groups of people to overthrow the Ottoman Empire. And so the Palestinians overthrow the Ottoman Empire, and the Palestinians have a state of their own. They have a country and the land of their own. And then that land is under basically a guardian ad litem by Britain. Britain decides to control that area. Britain decides that that area isn't, really good enough to take care of itself, right? Which is a really fucked up thing. They pretty much infantilize the country of Palestine, right? And so when they infantilize the country of Palestine and they're given government, a mandate is what they called it, over Palestine, they decide that it's okay to move the Israelites into the state of Palestine and give the Israelites part of Palestine. And so they go to the UN and they say, I really don't fucking care about US foreign policy, right? US foreign policy is fucked every inch of the way. As a war vet, US foreign policy is fucked every single part of US foreign policy. So at the end of World War II, Britain goes to the UN and says, we want to give part of Palestine to Israel, but we can't figure out how to give part of Palestine to Israel. So we want you to give part of Palestine to Israel. So the UN maps out how to give part of Palestine to the state of Israel. And the way that they map it out puts Palestine in 3 independent areas with Israel all connected. This would actually make it easier for the Israelites to overthrow the Palestinians again, right? And so the Palestinians are like, that's just not okay. Like, that's just not okay. You can keep your racism and your anti-Semitism out of my chat. Israel is not the Judaic people. These are 2 different groups. Israel is a governmental state. The Judaic people are a people, a religion, a faith. But Israel itself is an actual state. The US government is not the US people, right? The Canadian government is not the Canadian people, right? A government is not the people. A government is a state, right? A government is something that actually is causing harm in most places, right? So the state of Israel, because that is what we are dealing with, is the state of Israel, right? And when we're looking at, did I spell it wrong, Austin? I might have spelled it wrong because my spelling in the English language sucks ass, right? So when we are, so Britain gives the UN the right to divide Palestine. And when UN is dividing Palestine and their division of Palestine is unequal, and it puts the Palestinians in three separate areas that don't have connection, which makes them easier to conquer. And they know this. And so they tell the UN, we can't do that because if we do it in the map layout that you've got, the map layout that you got is going to cause a serious amount of problems, right? And so because they decide that because Israel goes to the UN, or not Israel, Palestine goes to the UN and says, if you map it out like that, we're not going to be safe. You're going to make it to where the state of Israel can actually harm us. So please don't map it out like that. And so as the UN is like, okay, we'll remap it, and the UN is going back and redrawing it. Israel decides to, many people who are going to form the state of Israel are already in Palestine at this point. And this is because as they are dealing with the Holocaust, going back to Palestine, they're safe in Palestine. The Palestinians have no problem with the Israelites being there. And so they're going to Palestine. They're going back to their holy land, right? Which is understandable. So as they're doing this, there are people within this who decide forming the state of Israel, right? And in the forming of the state of Israel, because the UN decides to make the map that doesn't work out well for the Palestinians, and then goes back to redraw the map, during the redrawing of the map, the state of Israel kind of rises up within Palestine, and they overthrow the government in certain areas, and they capture certain areas, basically, right? Now, again, we're looking at about an area that the Israelites conquered first, right? Like this was the land of the Canaans. Israel comes in. Israel conquers the Canaanites, and Israel describes conquering the Canaanites. Israel describes the colonization of the Canaanites. Palestinians being direct descendants of the Canaanites, just like the Lebanese are direct descendants of the Canaanites. These are the indigenous people of the area. So as they are rising up within Palestine to overthrow the indigenous government within Palestine that just got their land back from the Ottoman Empire and are still underneath a mandate from the British government. So it's not like they really even have their own fucking government fully set at this point of time, because they've been trying to, right? And Israel rises up and starts taking land. So first they take the initial land that the UN had decided they could have, right? And from the very beginning, the UN opposes this. The UN says from the very, very beginning, you need to stop this. This is not acceptable. This was not the deal. And they don't listen. So Israel takes over these areas, sets the state of Israel, and then decides to spread out, and then decides to conquer more, which is exactly what the Palestinians had told the UN. If you do it this way, the Israelites will actually take more land. They're not going to be satisfied. The Israelites are still attacking Lebanon. Like, they're not even satisfied with the land they got. They're going into other countries and attacking currently. And again, the Lebanese are also direct descendants of the Canaanites. So again, we are talking about the indigenous people of the region that the Israelites initially conquered and initially colonized 3,000 years ago, 4,000 years ago, whatever the biblical timeline is. I can't remember if it's 4,000 or 3,000. Not a biblical person. So in this conquering again, as they're eating up land and eating up land and eating up land, the UN goes to them and says, you need to stop this. This is not appropriate. This was not what we said. This is not what you were given. This is not okay. And they ignore that. There are several resolutions and decrees put out by the UN asking for Israel to stop their actions, and Israel still will not stop their actions. Palestine is actually and has been petitioning for space within the UN to have a chair within the UN. Israel refuses to have a chair within the UN, because to have a chair within the UN means that they would have to follow the UN's dictates, and the UN's dictates state that they need to stop attacking the Palestinians and taking Palestinian land. So in 1967, the Gaza Strip is controlled by Egypt, and the West Bank is controlled by Jordan. Everything else within Palestine has been taken by the Israelites, by the state of Israel. Everything else within Palestine has been conquered. Everything else within Palestine has been overrun. They are the original Jewish people, or the descendants of the original Jewish people, the Israelites, absolutely. Yet the original Jewish people are not the indigenous people of that area. right? Because the indigenous people of that area were the Canaanites, and the original Jewish people actually describe in the Torah the colonization of Canaan, right? God said that this is our land. It's the earliest form of manifest destiny, really. So when they take the Gaza Strip from what is underneath Egypt's control at the time, and the West Bank, which is underneath Jordan's control at the time, and at the same time, they're also trying to take Lebanese area, like they're also attacking Lebanon. Um, the UN puts out a what they call Resolution 242, I think is it. I can't remember if it's 242, if that's the correct numbers or not. But there's a resolution that goes out, and the resolution that goes out states that they are supposed to be returning the land to the people that own the land, right? Like, you need to stop going in and taking other people's land. This is inappropriate. And Israel refuses. So Israel puts the area of the Gaza Strip and the area of the West Bank under Israel control. It becomes basically an open air prison, right? It's basically the Gaza Strip currently is basically the Warsaw Ghetto, right? People are confined to this area. They have blocked the routes out. So any routes of escape for refugees is not allowed. They won't allow the refugees to move into Egypt or into Jordan. So if you're looking at the Gaza Strip, we're looking at a 2-mile square fucking space, right? There's not a whole lot of space in this, and it's housing over 2 million people, and most of them are living in refugee status, right? As in, they're not in a safe home. They're not in, they're unable to perform the normal functions that we consider normal functions of society because of the fact that their land is under constant threat. So since 1967, Israel has been bombing the Gaza Strip, and Israel has been attacking the Gaza Strip. The Gaza Strip is surrounded on 3 sides by Israel, and 2 sides by Israel, 1 side by water, and the 3rd side is that very narrow side down near Egypt. So they're blocking that escape route, and they'll attack that escape route. And every time people are trying to leave the Gaza Strip to move into Egypt, they are attacking, and they're attacking any route out of there. They have blocked the sea. They're on that Mediterranean Sea area right there. So fishing and things like that are not allowed more than 3 miles out, which is where all the deep sea fishing is, where is all the good food, basically. So they're keeping that kind of blockaded. And they'll actually shoot people if they go out more than 3 miles, right? So currently what we're looking at with the Gaza Strip is a space that has been under foreign occupation. I'm going to repeat this. A space that has been under foreign occupation since 1948, right? A space that has been under foreign occupation since 1948 at the least, right? Since they overthrew the Ottoman Empire and Egypt was given control of the Gaza Strip, right? So this foreign occupation then becomes an active foreign occupation, as in an active war zone in 1967, right? And so you have Israel going in, creating a space where they are putting all of the Palestinians that they can, other than Palestinians who are working for the Israelite government or the Israelite state, right? They're putting everybody in this space, and then they'll regularly go through and bomb. They have control over 80% of the drinkable water, the ability to actually take care of yourself, and they have control over all the food. They've created borders that mean that Palestinians can't get food in and out, right? So they've created kind of like blockades on the Mediterranean, so people can't actually get into Palestine to deliver food. They've created blockades along the Egyptian border, so people can't actually come up from Egypt and help the Palestinians. And the Palestinians, again, can't escape down into Egypt because they will attack any escape route. So basically what we're seeing is this open air prison, or and I really think that ghetto is really the correct term here, right? We are seeing that an entire group of people based on their religion and their nationality are being forced into a single space that all areas out of are controlled by the Israelites, controlled by the state of Israel. And so when we see this, this is exactly what the Warsaw Ghetto was. This is exactly what most of the ghettos were, right? And this is exactly, this is very open air prison. This is very much a space where people are constantly being harmed and constantly being attacked and cannot get away from. And again, we're looking at the indigenous people of an area. The Palestinians are the descendants of the Canaanites, and the Canaanites are the indigenous people of the area. The Israelites describe their colonization of Canaan. So the Israelites themselves state that they are not the indigenous people of this area, right? So if they're describing their colonization of this area 3,000 years ago, right? And we are looking at the indigenous direct descendants within that area. What we are dealing with is active colonization in an area with active indigenous groups fighting against that colonization. There are currently 4 indigenous groups within the Gaza Strip who are asking the UN for recognition as indigenous groups who actually fall underneath all of the categories designated as indigenous groups by the UN. So they should be recognized as indigenous groups. Of course, it takes the UN a while to recognize indigenous groups, especially when they're trying to deal with whoever colonized that indigenous group, or whoever colonized that indigenous group happens to be on the UN Council, like the Cymry and the Cynric in England, right? So the Cymry being the Welsh and the Cynric being the Cornish people, or at least those are the English names for them. And so where like you see that the UN is refusing to acknowledge the indigeneity of the Cymry or acknowledge the indigeneity of the Kenwick, you see that they're refusing to acknowledge the indigeneity of the Palestinian people. And in their need to refuse to acknowledge the indigeneity of the Palestinian people, they are allowing this genocide to continue, because that is what you are dealing with in this space. We are dealing with colonization and genocide. Colonization and genocide. And it is a colonization that has been happening in that area extensively over thousands of years. So first, we have the Canaanites here, and we get the original Israelites in, and the original Israelites conquer and they colonize. And then we see the Romans conquer and they colonize. And then we see that the Romans and the Israelites are driven out, and the Ottoman Empire comes in and conquers and colonizes. Everybody's against the fact that we're dealing with people who follow Islam, except I think that we should all look at the fact that Islam is actually a religion that preaches more love and tolerance than Christianity or Judaism do. And so if you're dealing with a religion that preaches more love and tolerance, and if you do not know the love and tolerance that the Quran preaches over the love and tolerance that the Bible preaches, then you need to do some more research. Okay. So we're dealing with the end game prophet of the same God. So they're all the same God. They're all the same. They all follow the Torah, right? Both the Bible and the Quran have the Torah as their base books, right? So we are dealing with people who all follow the same God in different ways. And we're dealing with the genocide of an entire group of people that is currently happening. Currently, the US does not recognize Palestine as a country. They recognize people, but they do not recognize the country. And really what they have done is they state that we recognize that there is a group of Palestinians that are fighting for freedom that exist, that there are a group of Palestinians who exist, right? But we are not going to acknowledge that they have the right to. We're not going to acknowledge that they have the right to their own space. Currently, Palestine doesn't actually have a country, does not actually have land that is not under foreign occupation, right? Because the only land that the Palestinians actually occupy that is nominally theirs would be the Gaza Strip and the West Bank. And again, both of those areas are under foreign occupation from a foreign government who is trying to control them, right? So currently, Palestinians don't actually have land that belongs to them in the eyes of the globe, right? In the eyes of the world. Now, that does not mean that there are not 152 countries that actually support Palestinians in their quest to have their own country and support Palestinians as their own country, because there are many countries across this globe that consider Palestinians to have a right to that land and consider Palestinians to have their own country. The US is, of course, not one of them, because we always support the colonizer. The US supports the colonizer, and we always, always, always support the colonizer. We have yet to be in support of the indigenous people of any single fucking area, because if we were to be in support of the indigenous people of any single area, then we might have to be in support of the indigenous people of our area. Let's be real. And this is why the US refuses to acknowledge that the Palestinians are both the indigenous people of the area and have land in that area. So if the US refuses to acknowledge the indigeneity of a people or the land within that, that almost directly tells you that you should be doing the exact fucking opposite, because the US is, of course, living within that colonizer mindset. And let's be real, the US colonized this entire country, this entire land, underneath the same doctrine that the Israelites colonized Canaan. The idea that God chose them and manifest destiny says that this is the land that they're allowed to have, right? So you have to understand that the US is not going to feel comfortable going, oh, okay, you're wrong. The indigenous people are right. Because if the US goes, oh, okay, you're wrong, don't colonize, the indigenous people are right, then the US has to go, shit, maybe we shouldn't have done this. Maybe we should land back with our own people, right? So, yes, the US government does not support Palestine. That does not mean it's right, right? Let's look at the right that the US government has been at any level at any point in time, right? So, when we are looking at the state of Israel and the actions of the state of Israel against the Palestinians, we have to acknowledge that what we are dealing with is colonization and genocide. I need to reiterate, and I will always reiterate, that the state of Israel are not the Judaic people. The Judaic people and the state of Israel are two entirely different things. The Judaic people are spread across this globe, and most of the Judaic people don't follow the state of Israel. Most of the Judaic people out here in the US, most of the Judaic people across the globe are free Palestine. Like most of the Judaic people across the globe are not in support of Israel's colonization of another group of people, which makes perfect fucking sense. We have people out here whose parents died in concentration camps, died in the ghettos, and they cannot countenance the idea that somebody else that their own people, that their own faith is going to do that to somebody else, right? Which makes total sense. Which makes total sense to anybody who has a thought process of compassion and humanity, right? It is not okay to perpetuate the trauma on others that I had. I'm not going to sit here and perpetuate the trauma on other people that I've gone through. Anybody who thinks that it's okay, I had that trauma, so I can perpetuate on other people, is inappropriate, right? That's not compassionate. That's not empathetic. That's not loving. That's not thought process for others, right? So, absolutely, the Palestinians are the indigenous people of the area. The Palestinians have been confined into two separate spaces that are extremely small, that cannot hold them all, and they are confined in those spaces. Um, yeah, and that's the thing. So many people survived the Holocaust who are not okay with the colonization that Israel is doing, right? And that makes total sense when you think about it. Anybody with compassion and empathy is not going to go, shit, this happened to me, it's okay for me to do it to you. That hurt me so bad and it caused so much destruction in my life. But you know what? I'm going to just go and do it to somebody else. People who do that are usually mentally ill. And I don't mean like they have Stockholm syndrome. I mean like they have narcissistic tendencies or are part of the dark triad. Anybody who believes that it's okay to perpetuate trauma upon other people tends to have a lack of compassion and empathy, right? So when we are looking at this, we must understand that we are talking about an indigenous people in an indigenous area that are fighting for the retention of their land. They're fighting for the retention of their rights. And anytime you sit there and go, are you okay with Muslims having this? Fuck yes. And why wouldn't you be? There are religious extremists in every fucking religion. That's the problem with religion, is it can be used to be extreme. Just because there is extremism in Islam does not mean that Islam is an extremism religion. Just because there's extremism within Christianity does not mean that Christianity as a whole is an extremist religion. Just because there are extremists within Israel, within the Judaic religion, does not mean that the Judaic religion is extremist as a whole, correct? So we must understand that just because Islam has their own form of the Westboro Baptist Church does not mean that there's anything wrong with Islam. And if your thought process is let the Israelites kill the Arabs because we don't like the Arabs and we don't like Islamic people, then you need to check yourself and get some counseling because you are the religious extremist. If you think on any level that any group of people should be harmed by another group of people because they don't follow your faith, you are the religious extremist and you need to get some counseling. There's no two ways about that. If you think that anybody should have the right to harm anybody else based on their religion because you don't agree with their religion, then you need to seek counseling because you have some mental health issues. No people should be harmed based on their religious group, based on their nationality, based on their ethnicity. These things are, we make laws in the United States that we should not be harming people based on these things. So the United States, above and beyond, should understand that that is not okay, right? So when we are dealing with an indigenous people who are being conquered and being colonized by a foreign government, right? We need to take the side of the indigenous people. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that we need to go in there. We've done enough damage. We've been supplying Israel this entire time. We supplied Israel's overthrow of Palestine. We supplied Israel's colonization of Palestine. What we should do is stop supplying Israel and ask Palestine what they need to have their own country and their own safety. There are several different ways that the UN could deal with this. There are several different ways that the UN could set up the land so that both groups of people have space within this land. And if Israel could respect the UN and Israel could actually follow the dictates and the rules that the UN is placing out, then maybe it could be something done in harmony. At this point, though, if you have a problem with Hamas, I have a problem with Hamas too. But Hamas is not the Palestinians. Hamas, however it's pronounced, is a people who have been traumatized and harmed since 1967. And so a group of them decided that's enough. We're going to overthrow our colonizer and we're going to eradicate the people who are colonizing us. Now, is that the way that I believe to go? No, not my way, right? Eat the rich doesn't necessarily, to me, eat them because I don't want to view their spirits, right? And yet I cannot blame them. I cannot find fault. There is validity in the fact that we have been under foreign occupation that has been traumatizing us since 1967, 67, 77, 87, 97, 07, 17. That's 55 years, 56 years of colonization and foreign occupation that they've been fighting. 55 years that they've been stuck in a 2-mile strip of 2 million people. There's nobody over the age of 35 in Palestine. Of the 2 million people, half of them are children. 1 million children in Palestine in the Gaza Strip. 1 million children in the Gaza Strip. Of those million children, of the 2 million people in Palestine in the Gaza Strip, 1 million are children. And half of that million, so 500,000, are children under the age of 12. That's who Israel is bombing. That's who Israel is attacking. That is who Israel is starving. That is who Israel is denying water. That is who Israel is denying refugee escape. That is who Israel is denying any form of an ability to even get out. Now, why would you deny a people the ability to leave a land? Because you want to kill them. Because you're going to genocide them. The reason that you deny people the ability to actually escape you is because you're going to harm them. 2 million people, 1 million of them children, 500,000 of those under 12. And you're upset that Hamas killed 1,000. 2 million people, half of them children, half of those under 12. And you're upset because Somebody fought back. And let's be real, that's what you're upset about. Hamas has been fighting back since they came into power. That is what Hamas is doing. Now, do I believe in the religious extremism that Hamas is preaching in their earliest iteration? Because let us be real and understand the fact that Hamas, and when they first form in the late 80s, their goal is to eradicate the state of Israel, to eradicate the Israelites. Their current goal and their current statement of goal is to overthrow the occupiers. So you're angry that somebody's fighting back. Every single time you're sitting there going, fuck Palestine, free Israel, or uplift the Israelites, you're angry because somebody's fighting back. How appropriate is it for you to be angry because somebody's fighting back? How appropriate is it of you to be upset because people are fighting against foreign occupation? Now, I understand that half of the United States is absolutely going to feel that way because of the fact that half of the United States is the colonizers, right? Half of the United States still supports the colonization, right? So I can understand why half of the United States does not want to see Indigenous people get their land back, because that might mean that Indigenous people here could get their land back. And that's just not okay for half of the United States because they're scared, because they're cowards and they don't understand what land back actually means. And because anything that puts them not on top of control of everything else around them scares the holy shit out of them, and they're cowardly. Where did the Jewish people actually come from? So there are like 5 or 6 different ethnic groups from that region originally, right? And with the Judaic people, because of the start of where the Judaic people are at, it's hard to determine the original origin of the Judaic people. So the Judaic people's documentation of their own history, right, talks about, it starts with them basically leaving Israel, or basically leaving Egypt, right, and wandering in the desert. Now, before that, the spaces that they are in, God, this shows how much I read the Bible. I believe that the spaces that they are in before that are roughly in those areas. But I believe that the spaces that they're in before that are actually lower in the areas than where Palestine is currently. So let me look at a map really quick so that I can actually like geography, because I suck at geography. And then let me do something really quick. So there's actually like a space within the Bible that, let's see. There is a river that is the original space where they say that Jacob, the patriarch, was at, and it's near the stream of Jabbok in Genesis. So this is actually renamed as the Zarik River. This is actually in Amman in Jordan. So, where the patriarch, so Jacob, who was renamed Israel, comes from, is a river in Jordan. The DNA of Ashkenazi Jews is about half ancient Middle Eastern and about half European. So, half of the Ashkenazi Judaic DNA comes from Europe, and half of it comes from the ancient Middle East. Which is pretty much that entire area, right? The Middle East is geopolitical region encompassing the Arabian Peninsula, the Levant, Turkey, Egyptian, Iran, and Iraq. Okay, so that ancient Middle Eastern area is where half of their DNA comes from. Their biblical recounting states that their original space of place is the River Jabbok, though the River Jabbok is no longer the River Jabbok, it's the Kara River. And the Zakara River is in the middle of Jordan, near Amman. So we are talking actually a space not even where they're at today, right? Now, the story, the thought process that is gone through in the Bible is that they're captured and they end up in Egypt. And then as they're leaving Egypt, God promises them that they're his chosen and he's going to give them a land. He makes them wander in the desert for 40 years, right? I'm not even sure which part of the desert they wandered in. Um, So the reason that they wandered in the desert for 40 years was God told them that they should conquer a land. And they said, we don't want to conquer that land. It's already occupied. And God said, okay, so I'm going to curse you with wandering the desert because you refuse to overthrow these people, right? But the desert is, trying to figure out what desert it is. It's called the Wilderness of Sin, or Zin. Which is so that the desert that they actually wandered in is actually in the Sinai. So they wandered through the Sinai desert because they refused to overthrow the Canaanites, and then they went and overthrew the Canaanites. Their original space is in Jordan. Why is it like that? It's got to be like that because that actually belongs there. So this means that we're looking at a group of people who are definitely not in their original area anyways, right? Now, I'm not saying that Israel should not have right of access to their holy cities, right? I absolutely think that Jerusalem, I personally believe that Jerusalem itself, the city of Jerusalem, should be a free city, right? As in a free state, right? As in anybody can come into the state of Israel. Or not the state of Israel, the city of Jerusalem, because Jerusalem is a holy city for three major religions in this world, right? There are three major religions in this world that all go to the city of Jerusalem as their holy center. So if you create the city of Jerusalem as a free state, which means that people, it's not, it's like Rome. Rome itself is a free state. The Vatican is a free state within the city of Rome, right? So if you create the city of Israel or the city of Jerusalem as a free state, like the Vatican is a free state within Rome, it has its own governmental power, right? And if we're looking at it as a city that has three major religions connecting to it, you can govern that city with a council that consists of people from each of those three major religions, right? Making Jerusalem a free state open to all people who worship the God that is associated with Jerusalem. So you can do that and divide the rest of Israel north to south, right? Give the north to one and the south to the other, and keep Jerusalem as a free state so everybody can access the free state. I would divide it at Jerusalem personally so that there's access from either side without having to travel through other people's areas. The original UN actually put Palestine around the city of Jerusalem, I believe. Let me look at the original UN map of Palestine. That's not doing it. I hate having long nails. This turns my 150 word per minute or 100 word per minute into like 2, right? I don't normally have to pick and choose my keys. Yes. Okay, so the original idea was for Palestine to be in control of the area around Jerusalem, but for Jerusalem to be a free state. And then, so Palestine has this control of the area around Jerusalem. And then Palestine has control of the Gaza Strip and then a part of the lower part of what's currently Israel. And then Palestine has control of a small area up near the Lebanese border. This is the original drawing of the map by the UN. And then we see that the Jewish state is all connected within that. So these are three separate spaces, but the Judaic or the Israelite state, and I'm saying Jewish state because it says it on the map as Jewish state, but the state of Israel actually controls from the lower part of Israel and then swaths through like this around the Palestinian areas of control, which anybody who has looked at any form of colonization or war in the past will know that if you make a country actually separate itself into three different regions that actually have no connection and then put another country in between all of those regions and that other country connects, that you're really just setting up for colonization of the regions that are not connected, correct? Like anybody who has studied any form of history of war, anybody who has studied any form of just any knowledge of how that works would tell you that that's just not acceptable. So having the Palestinians go, yeah, you can't do that because if you do that, we're going to die, makes a lot of sense, right? Absolutely, Linus. I try to make sure that all of my sources are good and that I'm actually looking up the right things if it's not something that I'm knowledgeable on, like well knowledgeable. And I'll be real, like I don't do biblical shit. I can point you out in the Bible where your God's a narcissist, but other than that, I don't do the biblical shit because I actually my preference on those religions is Judaism because Judaism does not want me to be Judaic. And then Islam because Islam is much more loving than any of the others. And then Christianity. I really don't have truck with the Bible. Awesome sauce. Okay, so I am going to take off. My sis just messaged me and she's ready for company. So I am going to take off. I probably won't be back today, but I will come back in on Sunday. I wanted to make sure that what I did this morning was, short and that we were working on the Palestinian thought process instead of the paleoanthropological process that we typically work on in here. We will be talking more about paleoanthropology on Sunday when I come back, but I will be back Sunday. I want everybody to take care. I want everybody, especially those new in my chat, to understand one thing as I leave. As a species, biologically, we are nurturing and communal. The rise of violence within us happens 10,000 years ago. We're around for 300,000 years, and we've only been violent for the last 10,000 years. We must be nurturing and communal to actually forward our species. Our species doesn't propagate with pump, pump, dump, and walk away. You are not a snake. You must raise that child for the 5 life stages from neonatal to adult that takes 25 years for the actual propagation of our species. So our species is nurturing and communal. We do not live in a state or a society that is nurturing and communal. In fact, we live in one that tells you to be nurturing and communal is wrong. And because of that, very many of us are dealing with a lot of depression and anxiety. Depression and anxiety is a healthy reaction to an unhealthy society. So if you are sitting there thinking that you are the problem, if you are sitting there thinking that there is, that you can't function because of the fact that you must be the problem, because the world is so fucked up and you're constantly depressed and anxious. I need you to understand that you are not the problem. You're having a healthy reaction to an unhealthy society. It is okay. And it is okay for you to feel that and use that to understand and to see what is going on, right? And you are necessary to change within our species. Our species needs to make significant changes so that we don't mass extinct ourselves. Land back is that change, 100% across the globe, returning tending and governance to Indigenous people across the globe, correct? It is only those of us who are awake, who actually see the issues, who actually feel the issues, and who actually understand that the society is currently very sick, that are going to be able to affect that change, because we can only affect change when we see that we need to affect change. And those who are depressed and anxious because of a very ill society and they're having a very healthy reaction to a very ill society are those who are seeing the need for change. And therefore, you are necessary. You are necessary to our species not actually dying off. Okay. So if you are one of those people that is sitting here just sick and just harmed and just depressed and just overwhelmed and anxious, please remember that you are the necessary people for us to survive this. It is you that is going to help affect change for us to survive the mass extinction that we're trying to perpetuate upon ourselves, right? And you are worthy just by breathing. You are worthy just by existing. You do not need to be exploitable, because that's what everybody is expecting currently, is for everybody to be exploitable. And when I can finish exploiting you as the government, I throw you on the street as a homeless person, right? And then turn everybody against you because I've exploited everything out of you. And now that I've exploited everything out of you and you're just a dry husk anymore, you should be hated for giving everything you had. We live in a society that thinks that you need to be exploitable. I'm an archaeologist and an anthropologist. I was a historian before I was an archaeologist and anthropologist. I've read all the history. I read all the history. Like, I've read a big amount of fucking history. So thank you for that, but no. And history isn't really accurate, though archaeology and anthropology is a lot more accurate. And I don't really deal with the inaccurate history anymore. I go prior to history. So, have fun with that. Make sure that you understand that it's okay to give yourself grace. Please understand that you are worthy just by existing. You do not need to be exploitable by somebody else to be worthy. You do not need to be exploitable by somebody else just to be worthy. And if you are dealing with the depression and anxiety that most of us are dealing with in an unhealthy society, that is a natural and healthy reaction to an unhealthy society. And that means that you are more necessary because you see what is going on. So today, please give yourself grace. Please give yourself the understanding that you would give to anybody else, because most of us will give that understanding to everybody else, but not ourselves. And remember that you are worthy and you are necessary. Please stay with us. I know sometimes it's really, really hard, but please stay with us because we need you. Okay. And remember your worth and give yourself grace. Take care of yourself, right? And you are loved. You are loved, right? Even if it's just by me, but I will guarantee you there are many other people out there that love you as well. You are loved. I do realize that the the Israelites colonized that area 3,000 years ago, and that the Palestinians were already in that area, and that the Judaic people, the Israelites, actually colonized the Palestinians 3,000 years ago. So that doesn't change the fact that the Israelites are still the colonizers of the area, and the Palestinians are still the indigenous people of that area, right? Have a great day, everybody. Decon, honey, you can't even spell what you want to say. I can tell what you're saying, right? If you're going to sit there and call me a liar, because I'm going to assume that that last word there is liar. If you're going to sit there and call me a liar, maybe you should like learn how to like actually do it in a way that somebody can understand you. Palestinians did not. The Canaanites did, and the Palestinians are the direct descendants of the Canaanites. So just because their name changed does not mean that they weren't fucking there already, right? I actually don't care about spelling. The only time I give a flying fuck about spelling is when somebody is trying to insult me by calling me a liar, or trying to insult me by telling me I'm wrong about something, but they can't even take the time to have it in the right form, right? Don't tell me that I don't know what I'm fucking talking about when you can't even put it in the right form, right? The biblical account says that God gave the area to the Israelites and told them to kill people. That's the earliest form of manifest destiny. Just because God says to kill people doesn't make it right. Your God's nasty. I'll leave it with that. Your God's a nasty narcissist. We don't like him. So take care. I appreciate all of you. And I want you to know your worth. And I want you to understand the grace that we should all be giving ourselves that we never do. Take care of yourself today. You're necessary. You're worthy just how you are. And you are necessary for us. Thank you so much. I'm not going to answer to your God. And I will guarantee you that if I answer to your God, if he is what you guys say he is, that he would love me more than you, because I do more works of love for other people. And that is what both Muhammad and Yeshua preached, was love. And most of y'all don't fucking deal in love. Most of y'all are exactly opposite of what your prophet says that you're supposed to be. And as long as you are exactly opposite of what your prophet says that you're supposed to be, but I'm still fulfilling what the prophet asks us all to fulfill, which is love, then I will get into heaven if heaven actually exists. Though I'll be bored as fuck and I would rather not. I'll take Valhalla any day, or, the Summerland any day over your heaven. Just saying. Have a great day, everybody. Much love to you all, and I'll be back on Sunday. Have a great day. Much love. I'll be back on Sunday.